Again, Big U, his son Baby Huey, or Big Huey, right? He was assassinated last night on Halloween out there in LA.
The streets of Los Angeles exploded with disbelief after Big U's son, Jabari Baby Y Henley, was gunned down in cold blood on Halloween night. What should have been a night full of candy, laughter, and block parties instantly turned into chaos. A night that exposed more than just a tragedy, because what came next wasn't grief, it was humiliation. NSBE's affiliates wasted no time turning social media into a circus, mocking Big U's devastating loss like it was entertainment. The disrespect was wild, and the internet, well, it caught fire instantly. But this wasn't just another story about street beef. It was something far deeper, darker, and way more personal. The entire city of LA was about to relive years of unresolved tension. The kind of bad blood that never really went away, only boiled quietly in the background, until Halloween night blew the lid clean off. It was supposed to be peaceful. Kids trick-or-treating, families winding down from block parties.
And I want to talk about, Big U. His son was assassinated last night out there in LA. Absolutely nasty work, man. Again, Big U, his son Baby Huey, or Big Huey, right? He was assassinated last night on Halloween out there in LA.
Laughter echoing down South Central streets. Instead, around 11:11 p.m., that laughter got replaced by screams and sirens. From Crenshaw to Compton, the word spread fast. Something serious had gone down near South Figueroa and West 69th Street. And when the news broke that the victim was Big U's own son, the whole hip-hop community froze. This wasn't just another incident in the trenches. This was a strike at one of the most respected figures in LA street history. A man tied to Nipsey Hussle's legacy, to the heart of the city's blueprint. Jabari's death hit like a bomb, and instead of sympathy, the online world treated it like blood sport. Twitter threads, Instagram lives, and YouTube blogs turned it into a public dissection. No mercy, no boundaries, just raw chaos for clicks. The scene itself looked like something straight out of a thriller, except every bullet was real. Every scream was real. Every second mattered. LAPD's 77th Street Division got the call. Shots fired at Fig and 69.
I mean, it is what it is as far as this is how the streets go, but Baby Huey, I ain't gonna hold you. Solid dude. Like, as young as he was, if you actually met him, he actually seemed way older. Kid was solid, like straight, solid dude. Now some of y'all be, well, he was in the street. He didn't operate like that. He wasn't operating out here like no goofy. Let me just flat out put that out there.
Officers raced out, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. Jabari lay motionless, his story already spreading faster than they could secure the block. Now, anyone who knows South LA knows that the Vermont Slauson Strip has never been quiet. It's a pressure zone that's been boiling for decades. Old sets, old grudges, and young soldiers still carrying the weight of legends lost. The smoke shop where it happened, Fig and 69. Smoke Spot wasn't gang-affiliated, but it sat deep in territory ruled by the Rollins 60s neighborhood Crips, one of the most recognized sets in the city. It's a stretch of blocks where loyalty runs deep, and outsiders rarely pull up without purpose. Witnesses told police they saw a dark sedan, maybe a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord, creep up slow before pulling to the curb. Jabari, standing tall at about 6'1", approached the car from the sidewalk, talking through the passenger window like he knew the people inside. Maybe it was a convo gone left, or maybe the setup was already in motion. Seconds later, everything changed. Pop, pop, pop. The whole block dropped flat.
Homie, they killed Nip too. Let's not forget, homie. They killed Nipsey Hussle. Eric Holder was not a lone actor in that. If you go back and follow the details, Nip and Big U got into it. Big U hit Nip Daddy across the head with a bat. His brother had to come out and shoot the gun. Hey, y'all get out. Say, Nip, come on, we finna come beat you. Because I don't want to pay that $20,000.
People diving behind cars, vendors hitting the ground, chaos breaking loose in every direction. The food truck guy was yelling he'd seen the muzzle flashes light up the street. And just like that, the shooter's car peeled off into the night, leaving behind shattered glass, smoke, and silence. The streets of LA didn't just lose a life that night. They lost a piece of their soul. And while Big U's camp grieved, the internet turned his pain into a trending topic. Now everyone's asking, was this a message, a setup, or revenge for something buried years ago? Because one thing's for sure, this Halloween wasn't about costumes. It was about ghosts that never left the city. Now here's where things get downright chilling. Investigators pieced together that the shooters let off at least 7 rounds, clean, controlled, and deliberate. From the shell casings collected at the scene, they determined it came from a semi-automatic, most likely a 9mm or .40 caliber. This wasn't some wild spray.
All this is nonsense. Me and Big U even had a conversation about it. And I said, man, I'm sorry you're getting dragged into this fake storyline. Not that I have anything to do with it, because I've never interviewed Loose Cannon or anything else like that. But I just as someone I'm cool with, I said, I'm sorry that this is the story that's going out and people are running with it, because I remember every conversation I've ever had with Big U, he's always spoken positively about Nipsey. Every time. Our interview, nothing negative about Nipsey. Personal conversations, nothing negative about Nipsey, ever.
This was surgical precision. Whoever pulled that trigger knew exactly what they were doing and who they were aiming for. Jabari got hit 4 times in the torso. 2 center mass, 1 tearing through his upper chest, another ripping into his stomach. A 5th bullet tore through his left arm and 1 struck his thigh. Witnesses say he stumbled backward and collapsed near the entrance of the Fig and 69 smoke spot, clutching his side, gasping for air while the dark sedan peeled off northbound on Figueroa, the tires screeching before hooking a right on 68th and vanishing into the darkness like it never existed. By the time the sirens wailed through South Central, it was already too late. Paramedics from LAFD Station 46 arrived within minutes, 11:14 p.m. sharp. But even then, quick just wasn't quick enough. They found Jabari barely hanging on, his breathing ragged. That haunting, shallow gasping known as agonal breaths. The kind of sound that lets you know the body's fighting for its last seconds of life. Blood soaked through his shirt, pooling across the concrete as they worked frantically to save him. They jumped into full emergency mode. Chest compressions, oxygen mask, IV lines, adrenaline injections, everything in the book. The medics fought for him like he was one of their own, but time just wasn't on their side. By 11:28 p.m., exactly 14 minutes after arriving, the heart monitor flatlined. No pulse, no comeback, just silence. Jabari Baby Y Henley, gone in the blink of an eye.
I feel like they had whatever differences they had when Nip was alive and they got over that shit. I've been around for a minute, so I don't feel like that even carried on to, you know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy, just imagine you raising this young dude, y'all fall out about some business stuff.
The next morning, November 1st, the coroner's office opened case 2025-04512. The results were brutal but clear. Cause of death: multiple gunshot wounds, leading to massive blood loss and a torn left pulmonary artery. The medical examiner said his body went into hemorrhagic shock within moments. The autopsy found no alcohol, no drugs, no trace of anything that could have slowed him down or made him vulnerable. He was stone sober, clean and alert that night. The final ruling? Homicide. Plain and simple. But here's the thing. To really grasp the weight of what went down, you gotta understand who Jabari Baby Y Henley really was. Born March 15th, 1991, in Inglewood, Los Angeles County. He wasn't chasing the fame or the street legend of his father, Eugene Big U Henley. Jabari played it quiet, real low-key, moving like a man who knew the streets but didn't let them define him. He loved music, dropped a few records under Baby Y, including a track back in 2019 called Hood, featuring Hoodrich Pablo Juan, produced by Kenny Beats. It racked up over 150,000 Spotify streams. Not major label numbers, but enough to make people listen.
And the person who killed Nipsey Hussle has been convicted of the murder. Big U's name never came up in the trial.
Not a call log, not a
nothing. Not a nothing. You would think that in a case this serious where you're facing life in prison, if it really was a murder for hire, like people are trying to say it is, which is nonsense, that person would probably come forward to try to get their time reduced.
His lyrics painted pictures of survival, loyalty, and family. Real talk from a man who'd seen struggle up close. And now, knowing how his story ended, those verses hit way harder. But make no mistake, rap wasn't his main hustle. His friends said he was on something bigger, working as a warehouse supervisor at a logistics company out in Compton. trying to build a stable life for his 10-year-old daughter. That man had responsibilities and made it known he wasn't about the gang life or the street drama that came with his last name. People described him as focused, grounded, and determined to stay out of the mess that swallowed so many others. In South LA, that's what staying out the way means. Keeping your head low, working hard, and refusing to let the streets write your story. Jabari embodied that. He was the blueprint for what every young brother in the hood dreams of. Staying true to your roots while still building something clean, something peaceful. Those who grew up with him said he was solid, respectful, humble, and quick to help anyone who needed it. His passing hit different because it wasn't just about who he was related to. It was about who he chose to be despite that. Jabari leaves behind 3 siblings, all chasing their own paths, and a daughter who'll grow up hearing stories of a man who fought to live right. A man taken way too soon in a city that never sleeps and never forgets. The heartbreak in this story only gets deeper when you see how his family reacted. Jabari's brother, Dion Henley, 28 years old and a rising star as a starting linebacker for the Los Angeles Chargers, took to Instagram on November 1st to share a message that broke hearts across the city.
When Nipsey died, right? When Nipsey got killed, we probably had about 375, 400 kids that was in our program. And I had the travel basketball team. We had a contract with Adidas that was worth about $3 million that Kanye West gave us.
Wow.
And then I had like a bunch of other different contracts. And for a nonprofit, we were really thriving. Then Nipsey gets killed. Well, after Nipsey get killed, then the rumor goes out, Big U had something to do with it. We lost everything.
You lost all those?
Everyone, I tell you everything.
Wow.
Kanye stopped answering the phone. Adidas stopped answering the phone. And I ended up almost going dead broke because we already committed to these teams.
My heart is shattered. Rest easy, bro. We got the fam. You could feel the pain bleeding through every word, man. He didn't write much, but sometimes a few words hit harder than a whole speech. Another brother, Michael Henley, 32, works as a barber out in Hawthorne, and their sister, Shay Henley, 30, has been holding it down as a nurse in Long Beach. Each of them was carving their own lane, living clean, and making their father proud in their own ways, proving that this family was built on hard work and redemption. But here's where the story flips from tragic to gut-wrenching. Because while the world was waking up to the news, Big U himself, the man who raised Jabari, was behind bars when he found out his son had been murdered. At 58 years old, Eugene Big U Henley was sitting in the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles, locked down with no bail since March 2025 after the feds hit him with a 43-count RICO indictment. The charges were wild, the kind of case that shakes the entire street hierarchy. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California painted Big U as the alleged boss of a mafia-like network tied to the Rollins 60s Crips. The list ran long. Extortion, human trafficking, money laundering, and even whispers about orchestrating a hit on a Vegas rapper. Whether true or not, the accusations alone sent shockwaves through the culture. And the way Big U got the news about his son's death shows you just how cold the system can be. Around 1:30 a.m. during lockdown hours, his co-defendant Loose Cannon, a known music executive who got snatched up in the same RICO case, received a message through a contraband cell phone from someone on the outside. He had to break the news in a whisper, right there in the dark, surrounded by concrete and silence. Loose Cannon later told TMZ and Hot New Hip Hop that he'll never forget that moment. He said Big U just froze, his fists balled tight, eyes locked on the wall. Then the tears came. He didn't say much at first, Cannon recalled. Tears streaming, fist clenched. Then he whispered, "Not my boy, not like this." That one line said everything. A father's raw, silent scream inside a cage, unable to hold his son, unable to say goodbye, left alone with heartbreak echoing through cold prison walls. Cannon said the whole tier went quiet for a while, like even the inmates could feel that pain. Later, he told reporters, "We're both shattered, man. Heartbroken doesn't even cover it, but we'll work through this together. Even from in here, God makes no mistakes. It's a test, but we'll rise." By November 2nd, 2025, LAPD's South Bureau Homicide Division had the case open but no arrests. They'd already pulled 12 different surveillance videos from surrounding businesses, trying to piece together every second before and after the shooting. Detectives even announced a $50,000 reward under the citywide crime reward program, hoping someone would step up and talk. But in Los Angeles, silence runs deep, especially when names like Henley and Big U are involved. And while the cops were doing their job, the internet was doing what it does best, spinning, twisting, and amplifying everything for clicks and chaos. Less than 2 hours after the first police scanner reports hit social media, the story exploded across every corner of the web. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you name it, it was flooded. At 11:45 p.m., posts started spreading fast. Big U's son shot in South Central. Heavy police presence on Fig and 69. Within minutes, the comment section turned into a war zone. People weren't offering condolences. They were throwing shade, pushing conspiracies, and dragging up old wounds tied to Nipsey Hussle's death, to street politics, to everything the city never healed from. Instead of mourning, the online world started dissecting the tragedy like it was a movie plot. Some were accusing rival sets. Others said it was karma. Some even went as far as blaming Big U's own past, turning his grief into content. It was ugly, a full-blown digital bloodbath where compassion didn't exist. This wasn't just the loss of a son. It was the public execution of a family's peace. The same community that once celebrated the Henley name was now gossiping, speculating, and fueling more division. And as wild theories piled up, the real story, the pain, the loss, the humanity, started getting buried under hashtags and hot takes. The whole situation became proof of how twisted things can get when tragedy hits the culture. Because instead of unity, the streets and the internet turned it into a circus, showing just how far we still have to go before healing ever begins. What we witnessed online wasn't mourning, it was mayhem. Something way more sinister than just gossip. Within hours, the internet turned into a digital battleground, with thousands of people treating Jabari's death like some twisted episode of street karma. Folks were talking about divine retribution, celebrating a young father's death as if it was a cosmic payback for rumors about his dad. That cold-hearted energy spread like wildfire, and it only took 90 minutes after the first scanner alerts for the madness to explode. By midnight, the name Big U was already trending. By 6 a.m., mentions had jumped from 2,500 to over 8,000 posts. Hashtags like Chacha Consequences, Big Henley, and Cha Baby Y were flying all across LA, feeding a frenzy that showed exactly how social media turns tragedy into instant content and speculation into fake truth. People weren't waiting for facts. They were building entire narratives out of pain, trauma, and clickbait. TikTok was the worst offender, flooded with videos showing paramedics fighting to save Jabari's life. One clip of CPR being performed, graphic and heartbreaking, hit 3.2 million views by noon on November 1st. Anonymous accounts reposted it over and over, farming engagement off real blood on the pavement. Meanwhile, Nipsey Hussle fan pages on Instagram started remixing tributes with subtle accusations, clips blending old Nipsey footage with captions like "Karma always circles back" or "The spirit of Nipsey don't sleep." By morning, those reels had hit 25 million impressions worldwide. The algorithm was eating it up. Every post, every hashtag, every argument, the system kept pushing it to more screens. The digital machine that thrives on outrage had finally found its perfect storm: Nipsey's legacy, Big U's name, and a fresh tragedy to pour gasoline on. And underneath it all was that old, poisonous rumor that's haunted the culture for 6 long years, that Big U had something to do with Nipsey Hussle's death back on March 31st, 2019. Despite being debunked years ago, those conspiracy theories came crawling back from the grave the second Jabari's name hit the web. People revived every dusty clip, every out-of-context quote, every half-baked accusation ever made. Old interviews, old podcasts, old screenshots, recycled as proof. The claims ranged from Big U vouched for Eric Holder, the man convicted of killing Nipsey, to Big U profited off Nipsey's death through his unique music label. But none of that held weight. His name never once appeared in the 2022 trial transcripts. The facts were dead silent, but the rumors screamed louder than ever. And because the internet loves chaos, those false narratives started spinning fast. A 2021 Charleston White interview resurfaced on November 1st, pulling in 11,000 likes and nearly 500 reposts. In that clip, Charleston threw out reckless claims about Nipsey's murder and Big U's supposed role, claims that had zero proof but plenty of shock value. Then came a Loose Cannon podcast clip from early 2025, where he implied Big U signed Nipsey to a shady deal, a clip that went viral again with 6,000 likes. The irony? Loose Cannon was the same man who'd later whisper to Big U in jail that his son was gone. The streets never miss details like that. Even Brick Baby stepped in to call the whole thing out, saying Cannon's version of events was nothing but messy speculation. But that didn't stop Whack 100's old Instagram Live from March 2025 from blowing up again. The one where he claimed Big U and Nipsey had a fight back in 2017 that supposedly led to Nipsey's brother Black Sam getting arrested. That story had been debunked too, but when it hit the timeline again, it lit up a thread with more than 50,000 engagements. None of this was new. It was old dirt with a new shine. The algorithm loves conflict, so the same recycled lies got dressed up as fresh tea. What we saw online wasn't about truth. It was about feeding people's addiction to controversy. The posts that popped off in those first hours showed how ugly the internet can get when tragedy meets rumor. At 12:07 a.m., someone posted blurry footage of the crime scene with the caption, "Retaliation for Big U's alleged Nipsey setup. Street war never ends." It got 19 likes and 5 reposts in minutes. Then, by 1:46 a.m., another account shared a still from the CPR video captioned, "Comments full of Nipsey's spirit and sins of the father. We've lost compassion. Death is entertainment." That one hit nearly 100 likes. People resonated with it but still scrolled right past. By 6:47 a.m., the energy got downright vile. One post read, "LA let Big U walk after killing your legend Nipsey, trash city," and it racked up 2,400 likes. A few hours later, around 12:57 p.m., a YouTube link titled, "Proof Big U killed Nipsey and his son's best friend," started circulating. 417 views in its first few hours and climbing fast. When you break down the data, the numbers are wild. Out of roughly 8,000 analyzed posts on November 1st, 62% invoked Nipsey using hashtags like Sheik Karma, Sheik Nipsey Lives, Sheik Nipsey Spirit, and Big U Deserved It. Only 28% were neutral or offering condolences. The rest, just 10%, called out the mockery and defended Jabari's memory. The platforms eventually had to step in. X, formerly Twitter, suspended 15 accounts for doxing. TikTok demonetized over 200 videos showing the CPR footage, and Instagram flagged around 50 reels under their hate speech policies. But the damage had already been done. What this whole digital circus exposed is brutal truth. We as a culture have lost our grip on empathy. People confuse accountability with cruelty, and karma with vengeance. There was no evidence connecting Jabari's murder to anything that happened in 2019. Yet the internet acted like the universe had just balanced some cosmic scale. It wasn't justice, it was pain, recycled and misused. This wasn't about proof. It was about wounds that never healed. The community's collective trauma after losing Nipsey Hussle. For some, Big U had long been painted as the villain. And when tragedy struck his family, they treated it like poetic justice instead of human loss. But not everyone fed that energy. People close to Nipsey's estate stepped forward, trying to calm the storm. Black Sam, Nipsey's brother, posted through RAH Records' Instagram on November 1st, writing, "Pain multiplies pain. Honor Nip with peace, not this." That message hit hard for those who still had hearts left to listen. Several artists and industry insiders echoed that sentiment, calling out the lack of compassion and decency. They reminded people that grief shouldn't be weaponized, not for likes, not for clout, and not to settle imaginary debts. Those who actually knew Big U, the ones who'd shared meals, memories, and real moments with him, spoke up too, defending him against the baseless accusations being thrown at a father who couldn't even attend his own son's funeral. By the end of that chaotic first day, one thing was clear. This wasn't about truth or karma anymore. It was about a culture that's gotten too comfortable confusing someone else's pain with entertainment. The reality people keep twisting is simple. Eric Holder Jr. was the man who actually pulled the trigger on Nipsey Hussle. The courts proved it beyond any doubt. He was convicted in 2022 and sentenced to 60 years to life. And through that entire trial, from day one to sentencing, Big U's name never once came up. Not in call logs, not in witness testimony, not even in the official court transcripts. Nothing. One legal analyst even said it bluntly. If prosecutors had even a whiff of evidence connecting Big U to a murder-for-hire plot, it would have been the first thing they brought into that courtroom. But there wasn't, because the connection never existed. Still, that didn't stop the internet from turning lies into legends. And what's wild is how this digital chaos started spilling over into real life. LAPD even confirmed it. There was a 22% spike in anonymous Crime Stoppers tips right after Jabari's murder hit the news. Over 150 calls mentioned old beefs or Nipsey payback, showing just how deep the confusion ran. It became this vicious loop, people using grief over Nipsey to justify hate toward Big U, which only fueled more division in a city already bleeding since 2019. Meanwhile, detectives were still working to solve Jabari's actual murder, a real case, with real evidence and a real grieving family. But that mission kept getting buried under hashtags and conspiracy theories. The story that should have been about getting justice for a young father turned into a twisted sequel to an old myth to really grasp how we got here, how a tragedy in 2025 got tangled. Up with ghosts from 2019, we gotta rewind. We gotta go back and really look at what happened between Nipsey Hussle and Eugene Big U Henley. Not the memes, not the gossip, but the real relationship. Because when you scrape away the clickbait and the good guy versus bad guy storylines, the truth turns out way more layered than anyone online ever admits. Their connection went all the way back to the mid-2000s. Big U had just come home from a long prison bid, released in 2004. And he was trying to turn his street influence into something positive. That's when he started the Community Intervention Alliance, CIA, in 2005. An organization meant to bring peace between Crips and Bloods across South Los Angeles. He was working to mediate truces, hold sit-downs, and mentor young leaders who could bridge generations. That's when Nipsey Hussle, barely in his early 20s, started showing up at those community meetings in Crenshaw. He was smart, hungry, and already repping Rollins 60s, but with a bigger vision. Big U saw it early and called him a next-gen leader. By 2009, their bond was strong enough that Nipsey signed a 10-year management deal with Big U's label, Unique Music Group. The terms? A 10% management fee and 25% publishing share, standard numbers at the time. Though years later, fans would call it predatory. But back then, this was how business was done in the streets-turned-studios. From 2009 through the early 2010s, they were locked in. They weren't just making music, they were making change. In 2010, they co-hosted an event called Unity in the Community at Leimert Park, bringing together over 800 people. Big U helped broker peace between the Rollins 60s and Hoover sets, while Nipsey hit the stage performing for his people. In 2012, both men donated $5,000 each to CIA's youth programs. Nipsey even told XXL magazine, "You Bridges sets, he's saving lives on my block." And Big U replied, "Nip made the music that gave our movement a voice." Between 2016 and 2018, their partnership reached its peak with the Block by Block series, a neighborhood initiative focused on fighting gentrification and empowering local youth. They brought out 4,000 attendees over several events. Behind the scenes, Big U was still playing mentor, even giving A&R input on Nipsey's now legendary Victory Lap album. He helped line up meetings, connect producers, and even reach out to Kendrick Lamar for a feature. Nipsey showed love back, cutting a $100,000 donation to CIA in 2018. Proof that at the time, their bond was still real. But when success grows, so do shadows. As Nipsey's star rose higher, his business mind evolved. By late 2018, he wanted more control, more ownership. That's when tension started creeping in. Nipsey began distancing himself from certain management structures, pushing to buy back parts of his publishing and expand Marathon Clothing independently. He opened his store in August 2018, and Big U still showed up to support. But later that night, he posted something cryptic on X, Twitter. "Loyalty tests all." At the time, nobody thought much of it. Just another vague post. But when photos surfaced later showing Eric Holder, Nipsey's eventual killer, present at that same store event, people started connecting dots that didn't exist. What was once just coincidence became a conspiracy fuel tank. When Nipsey was murdered on March 31st, 2019, Big U's reaction wasn't silence, it was leadership. Within 2 days, on April 2nd, he organized a unity march that brought out more than 5,000 people from rival sets, Bloods and Crips walking side by side down Crenshaw. He gave a powerful eulogy at Nipsey's memorial, calling him "my son in spirit." Big U's organization, CIA, handled logistics for memorials, community events, and joint fundraisers that raised over $200,000 for local families. Those who saw him in that moment, crying, speaking, organizing, said his pain was real. There was no mask, no PR act. So when the internet later started accusing him of playing a part in Nipsey's death, it hit like a sucker punch. People who were there said it wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. But social media doesn't care about truth. It cares about traction. By July 2020, a viral thread on X accused Big U of vouching for Eric Holder. That single post pulled in 50,000 engagements, retweets, likes, and quote posts, all spreading misinformation faster than any official correction could catch up. Big U tried to set the record straight on Vlad TV that August, saying plainly, "I built peace with Nip, didn't break it." But let's be real, denials never travel as far as drama. He spoke about how those rumors didn't just damage his image, they destroyed his work. The funding that supported his community programs dried up. brand partners pulled out. Grants that once fueled his peace-building initiatives vanished overnight. He said, "It wasn't about losing money, it was about losing years of progress. I gave my life to stop the cycle, and the internet flipped it like I caused it." Data from social analytics backs that up too. By 2023, sentiment analysis showed that positive mentions connecting Big U and Nipsey dropped from 80% in 2018 to just 35% in 2023. Over 5,000 posts spread. Those same baseless accusations, recycled over and over by new accounts chasing clout. The result? Big U's reputation, built over 2 decades of activism and music mentorship, got dragged through the mud. And it didn't matter that no court, no journalist, and no credible witness had ever connected him to Nipsey's murder. The damage was already done. Then came March 2025, and everything took another turn. Federal agents stormed in with a 43-count RICO indictment, accusing Big U of running a criminal network tied to extortion, bank fraud, and organized violence. It was the perfect storm for haters to pile back on. Suddenly, all those old false narratives were being recycled like they were evidence, when in reality, they were just old noise dressed up in new headlines. Through it all, the truth stayed the same. There's never been a single verified link between Big U and Nipsey's murder. What happened to Nipsey was one tragedy. What happened to Jabari was another. And what the internet did, fusing both into a revenge fantasy, showed just how broken this culture's relationship with pain and accountability has become. The federal case against Eugene Big U Henley was already a monster before tragedy even struck his family. Prosecutors claimed he was tied to the Rollin 60s Crips, allegedly running an underground operation involving extortion from local businesses, human trafficking through his label Unique Music, and even bank fraud linked to $1.2 million in COVID-19 relief loans. On top of that, the indictment accused him of ordering a 2021 hit on a Vegas rapper who had supposedly dropped a diss track about him. Big U pleaded not guilty to every single charge, and when his lawyer backed out in September 2025, he decided to go to war solo, representing himself in court. The man's fighting for his life, literally. Because if he loses, he could be looking at life behind bars. His trial is set to begin in May 2026, and every headline, every post, and every rumor since has made that fight even harder. Now imagine this. A father already locked down, stripped of freedom, watching the world twist his legacy into a cautionary tale for clicks. Then, in the middle of it all, he gets the call that his son's been murdered. That's not just pain, that's cruelty beyond words. A man already condemned in the court of public opinion, grieving from behind bars while social media celebrates his loss as karma. That's a level of darkness no one deserves. Behind the scenes, the LAPD investigation into Jabari's murder is still grinding forward. As of November 2nd, 2025, detectives have reviewed 12 surveillance videos from nearby businesses and are still waiting for full ballistics and toxicology reports, expected by November 5th. 2 persons of interest from Inglewood, neither with confirmed Rollin 60s ties, were detained briefly on November 1st but released once their alibis checked out. Then came the bombshell detail. Forensic. DNA found on the sedan's door handle turned up a partial match to a Hoover affiliate. Internal LAPD memos describe it as a possible spillover retaliation case. Street tension bleeding across old borders. Not the kind of revenge social media was spinning, but the kind that happens quietly in the background, fueled by decades of gang politics no algorithm could ever explain. So while people online were busy hashtagging karma, the actual investigators were uncovering something far more real. A targeted hit that had nothing to do with Nipsey Hussle. Nothing to do with divine justice, and everything to do with how dangerous the streets still are when old lines get crossed. The Henley family, already broken from Big U's incarceration and the RICO fallout that led to their Hyde Park home and assets being frozen, now has to plan a funeral under unimaginable pressure. They've chosen to keep the arrangements private, with a memorial service tentatively set for November 8th. Away from cameras, away from noise, just family, faith, and silence. This whole tragedy, from Nipsey's murder to Jabari's, paints a brutal picture of how the internet has twisted our culture's sense of grief, justice, and truth. Online, everything becomes a performance. Pain turns into content, loss becomes gossip, and real families get buried twice, once in life and once in hashtags. In the end, Jabari Henley's story isn't about karma or conspiracy. It's about a young father who tried to stay out of the streets, a father locked in a cell fighting to clear his name, and a culture that forgot how to separate real life from rumor. And as this case moves forward, One fact remains. The only thing scarier than what happened on those streets that Halloween night is how fast the world turned that pain into entertainment.